Do you hear me better now? Guys in the back? Okay. So thank you for attending my presentation. I'm Parsa, and I present Warsaw Dyamics. We are exclusively focused on marketplace apps, Atlassian marketplace apps. Partner, we are vendors. We are Platinum marketplace partners. We started our journey in 2019, and we started with two particular apps. We started with external share in the middle, and on the right you have approval path. Our goal in general, let's say our approach is trying to build apps that connect organizations with their outsourcing teams, with organizations outside of their Jira instance, for instance. So most of the time when we are creating new apps, that's our focus. We are thinking every operation within Jira, within Confluence is very straightforward. There are apps for it. But how can we improve that when organizations want to reach out to outsourcing teams, to vendors, when they have a contractor? Today, I'm going to focus on external share because this is the only app we have available on both cloud and data center. Approval paths and contract signatures are on cloud only. And so our focus is going to be on external share. But just for a quick intro, approval path helps organizations get approvals not only within their internal systems, but also external approvals. And I'm not talking only about customers, I'm talking about essentially anyone with an email address. We have an external platform where those approvers or connoisseurs can create an account where we then connect them to our instance and they can approve your workflows. Contract signatures is an app that helps you manage all of the contract processing. It's a contract management app, essentially. And it gets rid of the hassle of going through three different apps in order to get a document signed by a third party, have it signed by a third party app, then bring it back to your management, bring it back to your wiki, have an app where you can create that document, where you can store it. So contract signature essentially gets rid of all of that problem. It allows you to use your pages on Confluence or your tickets on Jira as templates for your contracts. Once the contracts are signed and certified, we are then storing them back to that ticket or that page as an attachment. Now let's move to external share. Before I move to external share, I just want to clarify a few terminologies because just to be clear during the presentation, when I say instance, I'm essentially just referring to your Jira or Confluence. When we are saying external users, this is a term that you're going to be hearing. We are talking about anyone outside of the scope of your organization. So that may be anyone who doesn't have a seat in your Jira or Confluence instance. Internal users, I think that's self-explanatory. This is anyone inside of your organization. Stakeholders are, well, they may be internal or they may be external users, but they have something to do with your content. They have a beef in that content. They need to interact with it or they need to view it. And then we have a technical user. Technical user is essentially our app taking actions on your behalf. So if an external user were to leave a comment on an issue, external share would do that. That's our technical user. So we are here when we think about our apps, when we want to create them, we are thinking about essential problems. And one of the major problems that exist in the world of Atlassian for the longest time, now on Confluence they have the guest account, it's a little bit better, not quite, is the lack of native sharing options. There is no way for organizations to share their content in a meaningful way with the external parties, or stakeholders, as I like to call them. And what I mean by meaningful, I mean most of the cases, you have to take a screenshot of that page, of that ticket, You have to convert it to a PDF. And while that somehow solves the issue of looking at that content at that particular timestamp, it doesn't solve the fact that it's untraceable, it's non-interactive, it's not bidirectional. So we wanted to solve that problem. Once you share that data, the PDF file, the screenshot, now if that external customer, if that the stakeholder were to require an update, let's say they're your customer and they want you to make a change, an internal user then would have to go ahead and make that change for that external user. So it's a lot of hassle. Now, we decided to think about a solution, and we were thinking, okay, we need a solution that you can create a copy, essentially, of that ticket, of that page, of that roadmap, or now it's called timeline, by the way, sorry, of that timeline, or of that filter, or of that board, that should be in real time. It should be bidirectional. And then we essentially hit a wall because a lot of customers were saying, okay, but how are you going to do that without saving our data, without causing security issues? So we're going to get to that in a moment. But what was the other problems that we wanted to resolve? Well, we wanted to resolve the issue of traceability. When you share content from your instance, the reason you have that content within your instance is because you don't want it to be public. You don't want it to be accessible by everyone. So when you are sharing it, you also want to know who exactly you've shared it with, what kind of user has interacted with that content, or viewed it even. Now, additionally, we were thinking, you have a guest account, for instance, on Confluence, but there is a lot of limits to their interactions, limits to the rate at which those external users can view, and limits to the number of those external users. So we wanted to get rid of that issue as well. And this is why the topic of my presentation is beyond boundaries. What we've created an app that provides solid security, and I will elaborate on the security part and on the privacy part, that doesn't save your data. This is only rendering your data. Doesn't have the possibility to even share your data with third parties. It is real time. It provides you paper trailing. You can trace it, and your external users can actually interact with that data. And when I say interact, I mean, apart from viewing, they can update it, they can create new tickets, they can... Closer? Better, sure. Thank you for the note. Yeah, so they can, when I say interacting, I'm talking about they can update that, they can create new tickets, they can change the priority, they can add attachments or comments, and quite a few other interactions. So, going back to the other slide again, I just elaborated on what they can do. You can have a look at for yourself. These are the highlights only. There is more to what external users are capable of, but I think the most important parts, most interesting ones is when they can create new issues, they can change the status, and edit your page or ticket. Now, without more words, because it's difficult to imagine how this process looks like, I've created a short video to show you how simple you can create an external link. So as you can see, we have external share available on the issue. Here you can create the configuration. This will essentially tell you what those external users can do. You can do a lot of customizations. And now, this is the external user's view. So as an external user, now I change the status. This is updated. I'm able to download an attachment as well. And as you can see, I put the status to do. And when I go back, on Jira, the status is also changed to do. There was a simple reason why I didn't slow down this video, because I wanted to clarify that we are, in fact, retrieving your information. because we don't hold it. We are not caching it. We don't have your information. So this is all the time an HTTP request to your instance to render it. And once you close that link, the data is gone. We don't have access to it. I wanted to also show you how it looks like on different type of shares, because on Jira you can create issues, but you can also create boards, timelines, and JQL filters. And because on project level you have different share types, we also extend some of the capabilities of the application on project level. So here, if you look, you will notice there is an additional feature allowing new issue creation. So this will essentially enable those external users now to create new issues. Now I'm going to remove the description from the columns of that filter share, because we all know how that looks like. And there you have it. Now we can attempt to create a new issue. As you can see, some fields may be missing during the issue creation. We are only adding the fields that are mandatory during this stage. We do not expose additional fields. So the issue is actually created by the external user. And if you look at the reporter, you can see that the external share for Jira has taken that action. This is our technical user again. Now you can see that ticket is added to that particular JQL board. And if we go back to the project, we can see that it is in fact added to your instance. Just to provide you again with more visualization of how it looks like, this is a timeline view rendered on external share. And what is really interesting about the timeline view is, the way I like to call it is that I consider it as a bonus feature, is that you can customize the timelines. So you can create a JQL, and we are rendering that timeline based off of the JQL that you provide. So you are not limited to the single timeline that Jira provides you on the basic accounts. This is a board view. And this is the JQL filter share that we just created a moment ago on the video. Now, when it comes to configurations, we didn't talk about, you just noticed that we can select the activities that those external users can take, but we didn't talk about what are the limits. Well, the hierarchy of configurations is very similar to Jira. You have the global admin, you have the project admin, and you have the basic users. In this scenario, basic users are also like mini admins, because they are enforcing the external users to view or to interact with your content in a particular way. If at a global level a configuration is set, it cannot be changed on the project level. So if the global admin says there is no commenting on the shared issue, the project level admin cannot change that. Now let's go to security. This is the first question we get asked when we are talking about sharing content. We have multiple methods to secure those links that external users can access. It starts from very basic security options. This is expiration time. You can kill the link after a certain time. This password protection. You can see that I've added advanced password protection and basic. I can elaborate on that later. I think I'm not going to give you a headache. My favorite is email and domain validation. So this is essentially saying, here's a user with that email address. Make sure that user only has access to that information, that content, or add a domain of the company that you want to have that access, and any user from that company with that email, with an email address from that company, can then access those content. We also have IP check. This was added based on a request for a customer that had open spaces, and they wanted to ensure that only the connected computers had access to the external share. and of course, SSO. So we integrate with multiple SSOs, and if we don't support it, you can make a ticket for us, and we'll start working on it right away, because we are trying to expand the SSO program to support as many different SSO programs as possible, providers as possible. And of course, you can track. And when I say track, you can track at multiple different layers. You can track what share was created. You can track who created it internally. You can also track the activities that the external users have taken. So if an external user has viewed the content, you know it, you know exactly the time and stamp. If they have changed the status, we are recording that. We are recording the IP address of those external users, even if the link is public, meaning that there is no way, there is no method for protecting it. And now let's talk about data privacy. This is the most important bit of the presentation, I believe, because again, most of our customers are very concerned about security and their data. They don't want exposure of data. To help you understand how it works, I've created a chart depicting how we are actually accessing your data and the way we are rendering it. Once an internal user attempts to create a shared link, we are saving only the permission and configuration that we were displaying earlier. So what the external user can do. And then we are communicating that with Atlassian. We are checking if that user, in fact, has access to view the issue, the content that they want to access. Now you may ask, okay, but how did they try to create a link to that issue if he didn't have access in the first place? Keep in mind that this is real time. So the user might have had access before, but they might have lost the access at a later time. We are checking that every time before we access it. Once we check that the user has access to that data, we are then sending a REST API request to Atlassian and rendering the information on your browser. We are not saving it again when we are not sharing it with third parties. There is only a single scenario where a third party may be involved, and that's because we enable you to configure SMTP of your email provider. And only in that case, this is on your responsibility if you want the email provider to have access to that information. Aside from all of the security stuff and the configurations, I wanted to point out additional features that we support. Yes, please. We don't provide a PDF exports support for that, but yeah, we don't have that button. And actually, it's interesting you mentioned the PDF exporter on Jira, because we wanted to change that. We wanted the external users not only to get a static view, but to get a real-time view, right? Which is why we came up with the solution. So we don't have certain features on the shared page may not work, because we are simply sharing the content, right? And we are rendering it as closely as possible to Jira or Confluence. But we do have customization options as well. So you can change that. You can have your own domain, for example, of the shared link. You can have your own logo or icon be displayed on the issue. And I think I'll have a slide that will display that. But we don't support the PDF exportation. Back to the slide, I wanted to show you that we also support API exposure. So we do have an API for external share. And if you are interested in creating some automations, if you want the links to be created, for example, one of the most common cases is customers usually want to have the link created automatically once they create a ticket. So you can do that. It is possible. You can also have cleanup, so you can also delete shares via API. So if you don't want to have that, you can also clean those links. We are integrated with permission schemes, and this is yet another level of security that I didn't mention earlier, and the reason is because it has to do with your internal users. I understand that we want the external users to be very much controlled because they are not within your instance for a reason. They might be contractors who do not need access to the content that is under NDA, for example. But even internal users, controlling internal users can be tricky because you are essentially giving access to your internal users to say, hey, you can create a share now to any content you want. That's not the case. We actually enable you to integrate with permission schemes where you can actually define saying, hey, this user, this user, this user have access to do that. They can view certain things or they can take certain actions. So that's permission schemes. Again, mentioning customizations. There are different level of customizations you can do with the share. You can change not only visuals, but there is also a lot of global changes that you can make that apply to all of the shares. One of the examples would be what we did earlier with the columns of the JQL filter. You can define. You can also change the way that the board's card view looks like. So there is all of those customizations are included. And of course, again, tracking and audit. Now this is an example of our own external shares roadmap. Our roadmap is public via external share, and you can go have a look at what features we have in mind, what features are requested by customers, and you can access this link online. And as you can see, we have the external share logo added. If you look at the domain, this is no longer the domain that we use normally, which is external share. Now we have docs.Warsaw Dyamics. So this page is at a very low level, but it's still customized, and you can see the possibilities. You can also add footers. You can add additional buttons to the page if you want. So I might be biased to answer that question, but I'll tell you what I think. When it comes to external share, with other apps I understand, but when it comes to external share, question for me is not if you need it, it's more like when you need it. Because we all come to that point where we really want to share some content with an external user. Whether it's a contractor, whether they are just another internal user that don't have access to that project, or if it's a vendor or an outsourcing team, we all eventually come to that point. You may not have yet. So the short answer for me is always yes, but the long answer is what are your use cases? If you would like to learn more about the current use cases that we have, that most of our customers have, you're welcome to step by the booth. But some of the most important ones are highlighted here. So we have customers that are using it to collaborate with the outsourcing team. So we have development teams that have outsourcing QA teams. And what they do is they share a board. They clarify that the board only displays bugs and the stories. And the external users are not active users on their Jira instance. And they are changing all the time, so they don't want to go to the hassle of having another instance where they have to add another admin changing them constantly. So with the link and a domain validation, the job is done. They create one board, share it with the outsourcing team, and now the outsourcing team is directly interacting within their instance without being exposed to the information that they don't need to have access to. I mentioned going cross departments within the same company. Sometimes, in my own case, because I am working across different teams as Chief Growth Officer, so sometimes I'm working with the marketing team, sometimes with the sales team. They have different projects and they have sometimes different instances in case of QA. But there are times that they overlap. When they overlap, I'm not going to add them to that instance or to that project. I'll create a ticket from that issue or from that board that they need to view during that period of time, and I share it with them. They update it, the other team is happy, they get the updates, and they can move on. So I think point 2 and 3 are kind of the same, just collaborating within your own organization. And in case of external share for Confluence, the most common scenario is sharing documentation. In fact, if you go to any of the apps we have on the marketplace, all of the documentations are shared via external share for Confluence. And the reason is simple. We create it there, we publish it, and it's done. We don't go through any other portal to display it. We have one link, and the link is sharing the space. So anything added to that space is automatically shared across the internet. And the last point has to do with the watching capability. So external users can start watching the changes on those shares, whether this is an issue, a timeline, a board, or pages. They can be subscribed, and whenever there is a change, there is an update, we are sending them an information. This is, of course, if you are exposing them to that information in the first place. So, for example, if you are not exposing the work log to the external users, we are not informing them that the work log is updated, of course. But if you do expose it, they can also subscribe to be informed about changes on that matter. Lastly, I would like to tell you why we stand and what is our reputation in the matter. Of course, we are Platinum Marketplace partners, but what I really appreciate about Warsaw Dyamics is that we are proactively, and when I say proactively, I mean we are super customer oriented, and we are constantly working on updates. And in fact, external share maybe a year ago didn't have some of the major features that I just mentioned, but we've been working very hard to make it as close possible to internal users. Of course, we try to keep a limit because we want to make sure that they are still treated as, let's say, guest users. But we are working on it. We are very much focused on customers, and what is important, that we are exclusively developing marketplace apps. We have a transparent roadmap, as I displayed earlier an image of it, but this is on our documentations. You can go ahead to external share for Jira, for example, and marketplace listing, and there you can have access to that roadmap. You can see it. We have a dedicated support team, of course, because we are part of the Cloud Fortified program, and we have to respond back to you within 24 hours. We would do that regardless, but that's part of the reasons. And we are part of the bug bounty program. Again, if you are security concerned, we have people that are working day and night to give us some nightmares on updating our securities, even if they are not very, if they're not really a security issue. With that being said, for this particular event, we decided to provide promo links. If this is for annual users, but if you are monthly and you want to get a monthly promo code, please visit me at the booth, and I will provide you with one. With all that being said, are there any questions? Thank you for that. I didn't have my notes today. I had to go through everything, but yes, I wanted to mention that actually we do differentiate between normal software ticket share and JSM ticket share. So we do have internal and external, internal and customer commenting and attachment. So if you want the external users to view it or be able to add comments, you can do that as well. Yes. And in addition to that, right now we are working on the possibility to mention internal users by external users. We do have some challenges because we don't want to expose internal user data to external users. Yeah, but we are working around it. We are figuring it out. We are still working on it, but internal users can mention all external users at once, and external users still have the capability of mentioning internal users, but right now, at the time being, they need their ID. But we are working on a way for them to only need the name, and then they will be mentioned on the issue. No, that would go against EULA. Technically, yes, but it's a slippery slope. You know, we are really afraid of having the exposure of the pool that is in Atlassian by the internal users. So we are really careful with how we approach it. Anyone else? Okay, so looks like it was very complete, I guess. I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you for today, and it was a pleasure to present to you.